My girlfriend told her friends that I was useless and just an irrelevant man. And now that I stopped paying for her college and car, she's begging me to change my mind. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 3 years. In the beginning, the relationship was great. We went out all the time, had a lot of fun, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. I knew from the start that she was in a tough financial situation because her parents couldn't help with college expenses, let alone a car. And she couldn't work because, according to her, she felt anxiety every time she tried. Since I was financially stable, I wanted to help her achieve her dreams. So I offered to pay her college tuition and eventually helped her get a car so she could easily get to her classes and internship. This went on for about 2 years. I paid her tuition every month as well as the car payments. Everything seemed to be going fine until one day, by accident, I overheard a conversation she was having with her friends on speakerphone while I was making dinner in the kitchen. She didn't know I was nearby. One of her friends commented on how nice it was to have someone helping her so much. But instead of being grateful or acknowledging it, my girlfriend started laughing and mocking. She said, "Oh, him. He's useless. Only good for paying for my stuff. An irrelevant man. I let him think he's important, but deep down he's just a fool with money. I'm going to break up with him as soon as I finish college." I froze in place. I never imagined she thought of me that way, because she had always seemed grateful for everything I'd done. All the sacrifices, the extra hours I worked to ensure she could focus on her studies, all of it was just a joke to her. I held back from confronting her at that moment, but I knew exactly what to do. In the following days, I acted as if nothing had happened. I kept talking to her normally without mentioning what I'd heard, but internally I had already made up my mind. The next month, I stopped paying for her college tuition and her car without telling her. I waited for her to notice and asked me what was going on. When the payment day came, I got the first call from her. "Babe, it seems like you forgot to pay for my tuition and the car. Did something happen?" I simply, "No, I didn't forget. I just decided to stop paying after all. From what I heard you telling your friends, I'm just an irrelevant man who's good for nothing. So I figured it was better to stop spending my money on something that, according to you, doesn't matter." The silence on the other end was deafening. She tried to explain, saying it was just a joke and that I had misunderstood. She said she was just talking nonsense to her friends, that it wasn't serious and that she just wanted to sound cool. She cried and begged me to reconsider, saying that without my help she wouldn't be able to continue college or pay for the car. But for me, the trust was already broken. I told her that if she really thought I was worthless, then she could very well go on with her life without my help and find someone else to pay for all her whimsical. If she really wanted someone irrelevant out of her life, I'd gladly do her that favor. Now she tries to contact me almost every day, apologizing, saying she was wrong, that she didn't know what she was doing. But I know exactly what I heard. She only regrets losing the financial support that made her life comfortable, not because she respected or truly loved me. I've moved on, and as for her, well, now she'll have to find another fool to pay for what she so despises. After I stopped supporting her financially and ended the relationship, I thought that would be the end of it. But what happened in the following weeks was something I never imagined. At first, my ex-girlfriend tried the obvious route, sending messages, calling nonstop, and even asking mutual friends to convince me to talk to her. Every time, she used the same excuse. It was just a misunderstanding. I was joking. You took it too seriously. But I had already moved on. I knew this wasn't just a misunderstanding. People who say things like that in front of their friends carry that kind of contempt deep down. And beyond that, my decision to cut her out of my life was more about self-respect than anything else. What surprised me, though, was how her attempts at reconciliation turned into an obsession. It started with subtle things. One day, I came home and found flowers left at my door. No note, no signature. At first, I thought they might be from someone at work or maybe a friend trying to be kind. But then other surprises followed. One day, I found my car covered in sticky notes, all handwritten apologies, with messages begging for forgiveness, saying she loved me and had been a fool. One of the notes even said, "You're the love of my life. Please give me a second chance." That's when I realized my ex-girlfriend was going beyond normal efforts. She wasn't just trying to patch things up. She was determined to force me into forgiving her. Then, one of my friends called me and asked, "Hey man, are you okay? Your ex came by here, crying and saying you were in danger, that something serious was going on." I was surprised. I had no idea what she was talking about, but something seemed very off. Clearly, she was making up stories. What else could she be inventing? I still held firm in not responding to her, but things became more disturbing. She started showing up in places where she knew I'd be. At the gym, the grocery store I usually went to, even a cafe I often visited before work. At first, she just watched from a distance, not saying anything, but her constant presence unnerved me. After a while, she started sitting at nearby tables, trying to strike up conversations. I ignored her, but it was clear that she wasn't handling the rejection well. That's when I decided I needed some space to clear my head. I went away for the weekend to a small town, staying at a friend's house where I knew I'd have some peace. I deactivated my social media accounts for a while and didn't tell anyone where I was going. My goal was to disconnect and relax. However, what should have been a peaceful escape turned into something strange. On the second day, I received a text from an unknown number. "Hope you're enjoying your time away. You think you can avoid me forever?" My blood ran cold. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. So how did she know? I started feeling paranoid, looking over my shoulder, thinking she could appear at any moment. Back in the city, things only escalated. I realized that, besides trying to get me back, she was spreading rumors about me. Some people started acting strangely around me, and I didn't understand why until a mutual acquaintance mentioned during a casual conversation, "Hey, I'm sorry to hear what you're going through. I heard your ex is trying to ruin your life, spreading some nasty stuff." When I asked what he meant, he told me she was telling everyone that I had cheated on her, that I'd abandoned her when she needed me the most, and that I was the type of guy who manipulates women into being financially dependent, only to throw it in their faces later. The most bizarre moment came when my boss called me in for a chat. He seemed uncomfortable, like he didn't know how to bring it up. He asked if I was doing okay, if there was anything going on in my personal life that might be affecting my work. I was confused until he finally mentioned, in an awkward tone, that there had been an anonymous complaint against me. When I asked what it was about, he told me that someone had accused me of emotionally and financially abusing a woman, and that it was starting to affect my behavior at work. Even though my company wasn't taking it seriously, I was shocked. She had gone too far. At that point, I realized this wasn't just a messy breakup. She was trying to tear me apart, piece by piece. I decided it was time to take things more seriously. I went to the police and filed a report for stalking. It was the only way to try to put an end to this madness. I brought all the evidence I had. The messages, her sudden appearances, even the accounts from friends and acquaintances about the rumors she was spreading. While I waited for the legal process to unfold, I also consulted a lawyer to understand how I could protect myself further. I started taking all the necessary steps to shield myself, both personally and legally. What began as a breakup turned into a battle for my own peace of mind. And meanwhile, she kept trying to find ways to re-enter my life or hurt me somehow. But one thing was clear to me. I had made the right choice in walking away from that relationship. In the end, the woman I thought I loved had never really existed. The real person was far darker, more manipulative, and more dangerous than I ever imagined. After weeks of dealing with my ex-girlfriend's obsessive behavior, I knew I couldn't let it go unpunished. She had tried to ruin my life, spread lies, and turn my daily routine into a nightmare, all because I chose to walk away from a toxic relationship. The authorities were involved, but I knew that wouldn't be enough to stop her. I needed to turn the tables and end the control she thought she had over me. That's when I realized that the best way to get revenge was to use the same tactics she had used on me: control and manipulation. But this time it would be different. I wouldn't be the victim who was deceived and emotionally betrayed. I would be the strategist, and she would never see it coming. My first move was simple. I re-established contact. After weeks of ignoring her messages and calls, I sent a short, cold reply. "We need to talk." This undoubtedly sent her mind racing. She replied almost immediately, desperate to understand what I wanted, apologizing once again, trying to appear remorseful. I didn't meet her right away. I let her stew in anticipation, letting her anxiety build, making her wonder whether I was going to forgive her. After a few days, I agreed to meet her at a discreet cafe, far from anyone we knew. She arrived before me, anxious, trying to guess what I was going to say. When I walked in, I could see the nervousness on her face. I sat down at the table, looked her directly in the eyes, and said, "Do you want things to go back to the way they were?" She nodded eagerly, almost in desperation. That's when I knew I was back in control. She started talking rapidly, apologizing again, saying she loved me, that it had all been a mistake, that she was willing to do anything to fix things. I let her talk, absorbing her words, but revealing nothing about what I was really thinking. After a few minutes, I interrupted her. "You hurt me in ways I never imagined. You made me feel insignificant, like nothing I did for you mattered. But maybe I can forgive you." The glimmer of hope in her eyes was immediate. And that's when she fell right into my trap. From that day on, I began feeding her small doses of hope. I pretended that I was reconsidering, that maybe we could try again, but I always kept things vague enough to keep her on edge. I scheduled meetups and then canceled them at the last minute. I responded to her messages in a calculated way, sometimes ignoring her for days, only to suddenly reply with something that made her think there was still a chance. It was all part of my plan to leave her emotionally exhausted, trapped in an expectation of reconciliation that would never come. Meanwhile, I prepared the second phase of my plan. I found out where she was interning. Despite her financial struggles, she had managed to land an opportunity in her field. I used that to my advantage, befriending a few people who worked there. Slowly, I started spreading subtle rumors about her behavior. Nothing too aggressive, just small comments about how she had emotional issues, how she was unstable, and how she had done weird things in past relationships. I knew people love gossip, and all it took was a little spark to get those stories spreading. After a while, she began to notice that something was wrong. She mentioned to me during one of our sporadic conversations, "I feel like people are treating me differently, like they know something about me." I just smiled to myself, knowing that my plan was working perfectly. Then came the decisive moment. I called her for a final meeting. I told her I was ready to talk about the future of our relationship. I picked a fancy restaurant, a place she loved and that held special memories for her. She showed up dressed to impress, clearly believing this was the moment I would finally take her back. But I had other plans. During dinner, I remained calm, polite, but distant. When she finally asked what I wanted for our future, I looked her in the eyes and said, "Nothing. I want nothing with you." She froze, the color drained from her face, and before she could say anything, I continued, "You destroyed any chance you had. I will never trust you again. You tried to manipulate me, to ruin me, but now you're the one who's alone." She tried to speak, tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't care. I stood up and said, "Oh, and about your internship, I hope you can keep your job. I've heard they're keeping an eye on some people there who don't seem trustworthy." I left her sitting there, devastated. In the following days, I heard that she had been called in for a meeting at work about inappropriate behavior, and that things weren't looking good for her. The internship she valued so much was hanging by a thread, and her reputation was in tatters. In the end, I had finished what I started. She had tried to destroy me, but now, it was her life that was falling apart. And the best part? She would never know just how carefully planned it all was. Revenge didn't have to be loud. It just had to be precise. Now that everything is over, I can finally say I'm at peace. The feeling of relief is indescribable. After months of manipulation, obsession, and chaos, I'm finally free from the madness that was having my ex try to control every aspect of my life. The weeks following our last conversation felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. She tried to contact me a few more times, of course, sending messages and even showing up at places where she knew I might be. But I was ready. Every time she tried to invade my life again, I stood firm. I ignored the messages, and when she appeared, I simply walked away without acknowledging her. Little by little, I think she finally realized that she had lost control and that I wasn't going to fall for her lies and manipulations anymore. Some mutual friends told me that things weren't going well for her. The internship was canceled. The car I had helped her pay for was repossessed, and now she's dealing with the consequences of her own actions. People started to see who she really was, and those who once supported her began to distance themselves. To be honest, I don't take any pleasure in knowing her life is falling apart, but I also don't feel guilty. She created this situation and is now facing the fallout. As for me, life has gotten so much better. I've been focusing on myself, working on my own goals, and getting back to enjoying life without that constant weight of insecurity and manipulation. It's funny how, when you finally cut a toxic person out of your life, everything feels lighter, like the world is full of new possibilities. I've met new people, started going out more, and reconnected with friends who've always had my back. And best of all, I'm more aware of who I am and what I want in a relationship. I'll never again accept being manipulated or devalued by anyone. Things are finally calm now. She stopped trying to reach out, and in time, I'm sure she'll move on with her life. I've already moved on. Today, I'm proud to say I got rid of someone who for so long made me feel small and insignificant. Now I'm free to live life on my own terms, without being controlled, without walking on eggshells, without the constant shadow of doubt. And that, my friend, is the best feeling in the world. The madness is finally over, and now for the first time in a long time, I feel whole again.